Welcome to DT tutorial. In this video, we're looking at undefined expression. Undefined expressions. So what is an undefined expression, or what are undefined expressions? An undefined expression typically refers to a mathematical expression that cannot be evaluated or has no definite or defined value. An undefined expression is a mathematical expression that cannot be evaluated or has no defined value. So any mathematical expression that cannot be evaluated, if it cannot be evaluated or it has no defined value, that mathematical expression is referred to as an undefined expression. So an undefined expression is any mathematical expression that cannot be evaluated, they cannot be evaluated, or they have no defined value. No defined value. So such expressions are referred to as undefined expressions. Undefined. Undefined. It simply means that these expressions, they cannot be evaluated or they have no defined value. So an undefined expression is a mathematical expression that cannot be evaluated or has no defined value. In mathematics, for an expression to be undefined, its denominator must be equal to 0. So this point is very important. For any expression in mathematics to be undefined, its denominator must be equal to 0. So let's look at this expression. For instance, this is ax all over bx. For this expression to be undefined, the denominator, which is bx, must be equal to 0. So for this expression to be undefined, bx must be equal to 0, and bs is the denominator here. So for any expression in mathematics to be undefined, its denominator must be equal to 0. So like I've said before, for any expression in mathematics to be undefined, its denominator must be equal to 0. This is very important. This point is very important. So let's look at this question. For instance, for what value of x is 4 minus 2x all over x plus 1 undefined? For what value of x is 4 minus 2x all over x plus 1 undefined? A will have 2, B will have minus 1, C will have 1, then D will have minus 2. So this question actually is a 2021 Y question. For what value of S is 4 minus 2x all over x plus 1 undefined? So like I said before, for any expression to be undefined in mathematics, its denominator must be equal to 0. So for this expression to be undefined, the expression is 4 minus 2x all over x plus 1. For this expression to be undefined, its denominator must be equal to 0, and the denominator here is x plus 1. So for this expression to be undefined, x plus 1 should be equal to 0, or must be equal to 0. So if x plus 1 is equal to 0, what will be x? So if this plus 1 moves to the other side of the equation, it will become minus 1. So when this one crosses to the other side of the equation, the expression will now be x is equal to 0. When 1 plus 1 crosses, becomes minus 1. So 0 minus 1. And 0 minus 1 is equal to minus 1. So x is equal to minus 1. So for this expression to be undefined, x must be equal to minus 1. So for what value of x is 4 minus 2x all over x plus 1 undefined? So our answer to this 2021 Y question is option B. For this expression to be undefined, x must be equal to minus 1. Okay, then the other question that we have here is a 1995 Y question. And the question is, find the value of x for which the expression 6x minus 1 all over x squared plus 4x minus 5 is undefined. Find the value of x for which the expression 6x minus 1 all over x squared plus 4x minus 5 is undefined. So we're looking for the value of x for which this expression is undefined. And these are the options. These are the options. So, like what I said before, for any expression to be undefined, its denominator must be equal to 0. So for this expression to be undefined, the denominator, which is x squared plus 4x minus 5, will be equal to 0 or must be equal to 0. So the expression that we have here, is 6x minus 1 all over x squared plus 4x minus 5. So for this expression to be undefined, the denominator x squared plus 4x minus 5 must be equal to 0. So for this expression to be undefined, x squared plus 4x minus 5 will be equal to 0. This is very important. And if you look at this expression, you can only think of one thing. This is a quadratic equation. And why is it a quadratic equation? It is a quadratic equation because a quadratic equation, the highest power of the unknown variable is a square. In any quadratic equation, the highest power of the unknown variable is a square. This is what defines a quadratic equation. So we are going to use quadratic methods to solve this equation for us to get the value of x. So the expression that we have here now is x squared plus 4x minus 5 is equal to 0. So the expression that we got is x squared plus 4x minus 5 is equal to 0. So we're going to use factorization method to solve this equation, this quadratic equation. So by factorization method, we're going to look for a number, the factors of 5, that such that if we multiply them, we'll get 5, and if we add them, we'll get plus 4. So we are looking for the factors of 5. So 5 is a prime number. As a result of that, it will have only two factors, 1 and itself, which is 5. So 1 and 5. So what numbers are we going to multiply to give us minus 5? And if we add them, we will have plus 4. So we can only think of this number in one way to get these values. The number should be minus 1 and plus 5. Minus 1 times 5 will give us minus 5. Minus 1 plus 5 will give us plus 4. So the correct factor is minus 1 and 5. So instead of me to write 4x here, I will impute these values to replace this 4x. So my expression now will now be x squared plus this 5. Instead of me to write 4x here, I will write these factors here. So this will be 5x minus this 1x. So minus x minus 5 is equal to 0. If I minus this, 5s minus x will give me 4s back, will give me plus 4x. So this expression and these expressions, they are the same. What I've just done is that I've applied the factorization method of solving quadratic equation. So from here now, I can now group my expressions into two. I will come here, group this expression, come here and also group this expression. So after doing this, I will factorize again. So if you look at this bracket here, what is common? The common thing within this bracket, or the common thing within this expression, is x. So if I bring s out, that will be x bracket. What will remain is x plus what will remain here is 5. Bracket close. So s times s will give me s squared. X times 5 will give me 5x. So this expression and these expressions, they are still the same. So if we look at this expression as well, what is common? There is nothing common between them. So we'll just bring 1 out of the equation. We'll bring minus 1 out of the equation. So this will be minus 1 bracket. Here will remain x. Here will remain plus 5. And we cannot put minus 5 here because what we have within this bracket must be equal to what we have within this bracket. So minus 1 times x will give me minus x. minus 1 times 5 will give me minus 5. So everything equal to 0. So since what we have within this bracket and what we have within this bracket are the same, I'm going to take one of them. So this will be x minus 1, bracket close, bracket, x plus 5, bracket close, equal to 0. So with this, I've resolved this expression. So for this expression to be undefined, my x minus 1, which is what I got here, will be equal to 0, or x plus 5, which is what I have here, will be equal to 0. So if x minus 1 is equal to 0, when this minus 1 crosses to the other side of the equation, it will become plus 1. So from the first one, my x will now be equal to 0. When this minus 1 crosses, it becomes plus 1, plus 1. And 0 plus 1 is equal to 1. So, or my x will be equal to 0. When this plus 5 crosses to the other side of the equation, it will become minus 5. So my x now will now be equal to 0 minus 5. And 0 minus 5 is equal to minus 5. So for my expression to be undefined, or the value of s for which this expression is undefined, is when x is equal to 1, or which is this, or minus 5. So this is the answer to this question. So find the value of x for which the expression 6x minus 1 all over x squared plus 4x minus 5 is undefined. So the answer that we got is 1 or minus 5. So the correct answer to this question is option B, minus 5 or plus 1. This is what we got, 1 or minus 5. 1 is simply means plus 1. So it's plus 1 or minus 5. So just a quick recap, we are looking at this 1995 Y question, and the question is, find the value of x for which the expression 6x minus 1 all over x squared plus 4x minus 5 is undefined. So, and like I said before, for any expression to be undefined, the denominator must be equal to 0. Is a must. It's not optional, it's a must. That is what defines an undefined expression. And that is what we have written out here. So we wrote out the expression here, 6x minus 1 all over x squared plus 4x minus 5. So like I said, what defines an undefined expression is when the denominator is equal to 0. For an expression to be undefined, the denominator must be equal to 0. So, and the denominator that we have here in this expression is x squared plus 4x minus 5. So for this expression to be undefined, the denominator must be equal to 0. So that will result in x squared plus 4x minus 5 equal 0. So having written out the expression like this, the next thing to do is to resolve the expression to find the value of x. And if you look at this vividly, you will know that this is a quadratic equation because the highest power of your known variable here is a square. And a quadratic equation is any equation whose highest power of the unknown variable is a square. That is what defines a quadratic equation. So for the fact that the highest power of the unknown variable x here is a square, s squared, that makes it a quadratic equation. So we're going to use factorization method to resolve this equation. So in using factorization method to resolve this equation, the first thing we do is to look for the factors of minus 5 such that if we multiply them, we'll have this minus 5. And if we add them, we'll have this plus 4. So we have to look for the factors of minus 5 such that when we multiply them, we'll have minus 5. And when we add them, we'll have plus 4. And the only two factors we can think of, because 5 is a prime number. So as a prime number, it will have only two factors, 1 and itself. So for us to get minus 5 and get plus 4 on addition, the only way for it to work is to have minus 1 and 5. So minus 1 times 5 will give us minus 5, and minus 1 plus 5 will give us plus 4. So this is the only suitable factor for this expression. So having gotten the factors, the next thing is to replace this 4x with the factors. So if we replace this 4x with the factors, what we're going to have is x squared plus, instead of me to write 4x here, I will put in these factors. So I have plus 5x minus 1x, which is this x that is here, then minus 5, which is what we have here before. So plus 5x minus x will give me 4x. Then the minus 5 here, minus 5 here. So if you look at this expression and this expression, they are still the same. So having gotten your expression like this, you can now group them into two. You group the two at this side, you group the two at this side. So if you group them, this is what we're going to have. So after grouping them, we can now factorize again. You look at this bracket, within this bracket, what is common? There is x here, there is also x here, so that makes x to be common. So you bring the x out of the expression, which is what we've written here. So what will remain inside? So here will remain x and here will remain 5. If you multiply this expression back, you will still get this. X times x will give you x squared. X times 5 will give you 5x. So here and here, they are still the same. Then if you look at the other bracket, there is nothing common between minus x and minus 5. So since there is nothing common, just bring 1 out of the expression because 1 is a common number to all numbers. So this is minus 1. You bring minus 1 out of the expression. Then you will still have your x there. Then instead of you to write minus 5 here, which is what we have here, put plus x. And the reason is because what you have within this bracket must be equal to what you have within this bracket. Nothing must change. They must be the same, 100%. So minus 1 times x will give us minus x. Minus 1 times plus 5 will give us minus 5 because minus times plus will give us minus. So minus 1 times plus 5 will give us minus 5. Everything equal to 0. So since what we have within this bracket and what we have within this bracket are the same, we'll just take one of them, which is this x plus 5. Then what is outside the bracket, which is x minus this one, we'll also take it. So we'll take what is outside the bracket and one of the things inside the bracket. So we'll take one of these and also take this. So here we have x minus 1, which is this x minus 1. That is what we're written here. Then we take one of them from the bracket. X plus 5, x plus 5, everything equal to 0. So the expression will now be x minus 1, which is this expression, is equal to 0, or my x plus 5, which is x plus this 5, is equal to 0. So if x minus 1 is equal to 0, when this 1 crosses to the other side of the equation, it becomes plus 1. So that is what we have gotten here to be x is equal to 0 plus 1, which is equal to 1. Or x is equal to 0 minus 5. When this plus 5 crosses, it becomes minus 5. So 0 minus 5, which is equal to minus 5. So the value of x in this expression will be equal to 1 or minus 5. So the value of x for which this expression 6x minus 1 all over x squared plus 4x minus 5 is undefined is when x is equal to minus 5 or when x is plus 1, which is what we've got in here, plus 1 or minus 5. So the correct answer to this y question is option B, which is minus 5 or plus 1. In the next video, we'll look at more examples and we'll be looking at this 2020 y question.